The Bellamy plantation glowed beneath the fading light, its fields stretching out like a sea of white under the golden Alabama dusk. Cotton swayed in the evening breeze, soft and deceptive, hiding the weight of blood and broken backs that kept it blooming. The overseers' voices carried sharp and cruel across the rows, their whips cracking in rhythms that had become the language of survival. Men bent low, women moved with quiet precision, and children, too small for such endless work, learned early that silence kept the pain at bay. From the steps of the big house, the world looked perfect, but Isabel knew better. She had learned to see through perfection. She moved quietly along the polished floors of the great house, her bare feet gliding over wood that had been scrubbed so many times her hands still bled from the lye. The air smelled of sugar, perfume, and candle wax, a clawing sweetness that turned her stomach as the house trembled with preparations for the ball. Every surface sparkled, every chandelier dripped light like glass raindrops, and every room hummed with the anticipation of excess. The Bellamys were not simply preparing for a celebration. They were staging a performance, a spectacle of wealth and power designed to remind everyone in attendance of their place. Isabel had learned early how to vanish in plain sight. She wore invisibility like a second skin. Her eyes lowered just enough to avoid the bite of a glance, her hands steady as they folded linens, polished silver, and set crystal goblets in perfect lines on tables that would soon groan under the weight of roasted meats and sugared fruit. To the Bellamys, she was nothing more than another pair of silent hands, efficient, obedient, forgettable. They never noticed the sharpness in her gaze, the way her eyes lingered, memorizing, cataloging. They never thought to wonder what lived in the quiet behind her stillness. Every step through that house was a reminder. The scar on her shoulder burned as her thin dress brushed against it, the mark of a night when a whip had sung across her skin because she had dared to speak in her own defense. The faint ridge of another scar curved along her wrist, where iron had bitten deep as they chained her to the post in the yard while the guests drank champagne and laughed at the sound of her screams. She carried them all, every mark, every wound, not as shame, but as quiet promises carved into flesh. Her mind was a place she guarded as carefully as the small knife hidden beneath the loose floorboard in the pantry. No one could enter it. No one could touch it. While the others slept, she lay awake in the silence, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of cicadas outside the narrow window, and building the plan that had grown roots inside her. Every face was etched there, the mistress with her jeweled hands and sharp tongue, who had laughed when her father collapsed in the fields and never rose again. The master, whose soft voice hid teeth sharper than any predator's, who had sold her little brother downriver for the crime of asking for food. The overseer with his pale, hard eyes, who had turned every punishment into a game. She had memorized their routines, their habits, the way they moved through the house, the times they let their guards slip. She knew who favored wine and who preferred brandy, who lingered in the ballroom too long after midnight, who stumbled into the garden to steal moments of secret indulgence. Tonight, they would all gather in the same room. The thoughts settled in her chest like fire contained in a small glass jar, steady and controlled, but ready to shatter. She had counted the weeks, marked the days in her mind, each one pulling her closer to this moment. No one suspected the quiet girl who drifted silently through the house, who poured their tea and stitched their linens and endured their casual cruelty with lowered eyes. That invisibility, that gift of being unseen, had been her greatest weapon. From the doorway of the grand ballroom, Isabel watched as the final touches were made. The polished floor gleamed, reflecting the soft light of the chandeliers above, and the long tables were dressed in white linens that billowed like sails. Footmen adjusted the placement of silver candlesticks, their reflections bending in the glass. Musicians tuned their instruments in the corner, filling the air with soft, wandering notes, that would within hours carry the guests across the dance floor in a swirl of silk and lace. Her expression remained neutral, but her thoughts were sharp, a steady current beneath the calm surface. She thought of her mother, her body frail from years of hunger, her spirit extinguished under the weight of endless servitude. She thought of her father, his strength broken in the fields, left to die in the dirt while laughter floated from the big house. She thought of her little brother, his small hand slipping from hers as he was dragged away, his terrified eye